Cool. So have Matt here in the studio. We're chatting a little bit about video and stuff. You want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Matthew, and I run my own freelance business called Reimer Digital. Last name is Reimer, hence the name. And so I've been doing this business freelance. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time on the side while I was working at other businesses, but I've been doing it full time since last year, April.
Okay.
And so before that, I kind of find that like with my line of work and like, well, and yours as well, and like kind of the graduates from the Red River College course that I took, there's usually kind of three different areas that usually they experience and work, either agency, in-house, or freelance. And so before working freelance full time, then I did agency, and then I did it in-house, and now I'm doing freelance full time. And so
yeah. What do you say would be the biggest like experience piece that helped you? Was it the agency, in-house? What
probably
helped the most?
You know, they did in different ways. Give me a lot of experience and I learned a lot from all three of those, or well, the first two experiences anyways. Like the first that I did was agency. And from that, and I worked for an agency in Winnipeg. It was a pretty big agency that's been around for a really long time. And so there's a lot that I learned just about the relationship of like clients and you know, designers and marketers, kind of the dynamics of that and the operations of marketing from that. And also like we worked on really big projects. So there was a lot of different like phases of doing research, like market research. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff that, you know, you don't necessarily get with like smaller projects or smaller businesses.
Right.
So that was really helpful, was just kind of understanding the dynamics of that relationship of like a marketer and a client, which is definitely something that I use now doing freelance. And then in-house, like the business that I worked for in-house, when I started there it was a smaller business. It was like, I think I was the 6th employee or something. And now when I left, it was like 20 employees. And so
big change.
Yeah. So it was a big change. And especially at the start of working there, I learned a lot about, I'd say like strategy too, because we were really like scrappy. We had a small team, you know, a smaller budget than what I was used to at the agency. Yeah. And so we were really like trying to squeeze as much as we could out of like every budgeting dollar that we spent. And so there's a lot more like, strategy and, you know, what works, what sticks. If we're going to spend money, like what kind of return on investment is it? Which is a bit different, I guess, than like in an agency setting where, you know, you're not the client that is like you're spending on behalf of a client. Yes. But it's a bit of a different experience when you're the one who's actually spending your own dollars to market and making sure that that's actually, I mean, obviously, you know,
you always want to get a good return on investment.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, when you're spending smaller dollars and that's all the dollars you have, you're not going to go out and get another client or whatever. You need to make every dollar count. You can't, having a campaign that fails is more devastating than in a, hey, this is the only client I have. I'm working for a business. That's a different situation for sure. Yeah,
exactly. And it's kind of like at the agency, a lot of the businesses that we were working for were pretty large businesses, I guess, like in Manitoba or kind of in Canada. And so there was, you know, multi-million-dollar marketing budgets versus then coming to this company that was like a smaller company, and relatively it was a much smaller marketing budget.
Right.
There was a budget. It wasn't like a total, you know, some small companies don't really have. Yeah, exactly. So, so there was a budget, but it was definitely like every dollar, I mean, counted. Obviously it does for larger budgets too, but so that was a good experience as well, is just like really being in a small business and kind of understanding, you know, being really close with the owner and understanding what he wants to see and how, you know, I can work to accomplish that. And then, now freelance, kind of taking those skills that I learned from agency and then also from being in-house. So
you've done a lot of video content. I mean, we've used you for some stuff. We think you do a really good job. What do you think are like the keys and the tricks, and like why is video a big piece of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, like I've kind of like I got interested in video in high school, really, like before college. And then I went to college, went to Red River College, their digital media design program. They're actually probably focused more and learn more about you know, web design and more like digital stuff. But this interest in video has always been there for me. And so I think like one of the things about video that one of the reasons that I really like it, and one of the reasons that I think it's very valuable to businesses too, is just that video is kind of unique in its ability to tell a story that other forms of media can't necessarily, right?
Absolutely.
Like video, it's a visual medium, right? And I think I've heard somewhere that like, we rely on our visual sense a lot more than any other one. Like it's 80% of kind of what we perceive. And so it's visual content, but then it's also like linear, as in there's like a start and an end to a video, whether it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, an hour. There's kind of a linear aspect to the visual content, right? And so, again, whether it's like 10 seconds or an hour, you can tell a story in that time of, you can present a problem and then provide the solution, or present a conflict and then provide the resolution, which
you have almost the whole sales cycle all in one video, where you're going through arcs of like, this is where you could be, this is where you could be at the end, and here's the in-between of us doing that, right? That's a really cool thing. And I know from my personal experience, I like to consume video content. Even when there's something written, I like the video version of it, because I know that I'm going to get a little bit of something dynamic. They might give me more insights. They might say, hey, this is a personal experience. And that's where like video content does a really, really good job of saying, here's the story, here's the important pieces, and this is what you can expect on the other side of it. Yeah,
exactly. And it's kind of no surprise too that like a lot of social media platforms like over the years have really just trended toward video, right?
Yeah.
Is that like, that's something that is engaging, like people love to consume video, because it just it's like the movement, it's the images, it's the sound, it's like the story. There's so many things that can be packaged up in a video that you can't necessarily do in like just a single image or just written content. And I mean, those pieces do of course have their place, but video definitely seems to be the kind of the king of content right now, right?
It absolutely is. Instagram made a announcement in 2022 saying, hey, we want to do and like promote pictures, because that's where we started, and we want to like do that thing. And then by the end of 2022 going into 2023, they came out and said, no one cares. We're going to put all of our eggs into reels. And so that's kind of one of these interesting things where the market is following. People want video content. That's what people are consuming today. Like, well, for good and bad, people scroll all day long and you just get stuck in scrolling through videos, but that is how people are consuming their content.
Totally.
How do you take content and actually apply it to a business and say, hey, we're going to create some value with a video? What does that look like for you?
Well, I think like, I watched, or I kind of looked at some of your past podcasts and videos, and one of them you talked a bit about what is marketing, or no, specifically what is a brand, right? And just that kind of addressing also the misconception of like a brand is something that we tell people that we are. Really, it's actually like a brand is what other people say about you. And so you can obviously try to curate what they say about you and influence what they say about you with, logo, design, that kind of thing, video. But really it's about what do people say about you. And I think that for a lot of people, their connection to a brand or to a business is based on the people, especially in like smaller businesses and local businesses. It's really about the people. And I think video is one of those tools that really has that opportunity to show people, to show real people, to show their personalities. Like they shine through in video far more than anything else. And so I think that's one of the, like a lot of the videos that I do aren't even necessarily just like, product showcase kind of videos. A lot of the videos that I do are really focused on people, which I think is something that can be really successful because people connect to people. And so if you can really show people at the forefront of your brand, of your business, of your product, people relate to that, and they, especially when you think of storytelling, like you relate to the person in a story, right? And so
you don't see cinematic movies or anything without characters, right? And people don't really connect to characters that aren't like people. You need something to connect to. So you have a hero of a story or whatever the thing is, and then you want to be able to connect to this person. If they're perfectly polished, sometimes that's actually not the best thing. Right? Sometimes it's what's the thing that makes you stand out? What's the thing that is unique about you.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like every business has people behind it, right? And so every business has that opportunity to actually show who they are, the people behind the brand. And I think that's really powerful and probably often underutilized a bit. And I get why, because it's kind of that, it feels kind of vulnerable to put yourself as a person or your employees or your customers, that kind of thing, at the forefront of your brand. But I think when it's done well, it can be really, really successful. So
I think it also breaks the ice a little bit. When I go to a business and I've seen their content online, and when I walk in the door, it's the guy.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden like, oh, I kind of know who you are.
Yeah.
Like I can have a conversation with this guy because it's not like I'm not 2 steps separated away from this person. I've seen a bunch of their content. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like I like working with you. This is cool.
Yeah. Just this, I think it was this weekend I was at the mall in St. Vital, and then I just happened to walk across somebody that I have never met in person. Yeah. But I've seen their content online, and I know their business. I know people who work their business, but I've never met them before. Yeah. And I just saw this person, and it was like instantly the connection was, okay, well, this business, like I know this person. I didn't talk to them because I don't actually know them, but when I saw them, I'm like, this person represents this business. And so,
well, and I think like famous people talk about this all the time. Like Joe Rogan recently talked about it on his podcast. He's like, people know who I am and I don't know who they are. And it's kind of a weird dynamic because they've listened to so much content, or they've seen me do all these different things. So they know all this stuff about me. I know nothing about them. Yeah. It's almost like an unfair like relationship in that way. But what I think it does that's advantageous for businesses is it does break down a lot of those barriers, and you can build a relationship and a trust factor with people where, hey, we can be open and honest about what our business does, what our goals are. And then someone coming in can be like, I don't have to worry because they talk about this all the time. They're open about their business and how things operate.
Yeah. And there's definitely and like I said before, like people relate to people too. And so I think even with video, there's the opportunity to not just like, the people behind your business, but even, like there's a company that I made a lot of like testimonial videos for. Yeah. And, there's one customer who we had identified that really had like the lifestyle, like he, is using this software company. And he had this lifestyle of like he traveled around Canada in an RV, worked on his business remotely. That's cool. Wherever he was, kind of thing. Yeah. And it was this kind of like that our audience of specifically was like people who are working, well, it's called like a cloud accountant. So accountants that are working with online softwares as opposed to like locally downloaded softwares. Yeah. And so that was the target audience. And here you have this customer who has this story and this experience of being able to travel across the country, which is kind of the dream of all these accountants that are cloud accountants that are working online instead of kind of in person type of thing. And so to really like paint a picture of his experience and having the people who view that video, our target audience, see that experience and really like want that. Like that's the goal. Like I'd love to be able to do that. And then to be able to kind of put our brand at the end of that of, he's able to do that in part because of what we provide to him. Yeah. And so I think that's another powerful part of video is just being able to show people what they could experience. And you see that a lot with like, even like car ads nowadays, right? Yeah. It's like nowadays it's not really about the car, it's about the experience that the car gives you. Yeah. And so that idea of like even pulling out experiences that people can look at and look to as like, that's what I would love to do. And then at the end of the video, it's like, this business helps me do this.
Yeah. How do you do that? What were the results of an ad like that? Like what was the plan? I think social proof is a big piece of that. Yeah. And then like how did it turn out? Yeah,
and so I was working for a business like this software business where we had a lot of different customers in like different industries kind of thing. And this one was kind of specifically again focusing on those accountants. Yeah. And so we shot this video with this guy telling his story, quite an inspiration of what he's able to do. And then, kind of tagline that with like made possible by his ability to use the software online. And so I found like, running the ads, like the nice thing about video too is that it's so dynamic in that it can be used for ads. It can be, used in longer form, shorter form. And so this specific ad, I think, or this video in total was like maybe 3 minutes, but then we're able to get a bunch of like 15-second stuff. And honestly, like it ran, like we use that. I mean, I think it's still being used at this business for years. So
that's the other nice thing about testimonial stuff is as long as that customer is a happy customer, that video will last forever.
Yeah.
It's a standing testament of how you helped them, of how you added value to them. And it's not just, I think of this as the second stage of social proof, right? You have 3 steps. One is, what is your personal experience? The second one is, what is like your friends and family say? And the third one is usually reviews. You can get reviews into that second stage of somebody I trust by just making a video.
Yeah.
It matters way more if someone is like, this is actually my story. You can relate to the person, just like you said, right? You're relating to somebody, and that social proof is worth way, way, way more.
Yeah. And I think that's like definitely with video, that opportunity to present a person that someone else can kind of aspire to, which is, I think, like in making video testimonials has often been my approach kind of is like, can we identify somebody who represents kind of the aspiration of our target audience and then put their story on display, and people are going to genuinely be interested in it. And then show through that story how company XYZ contributed to that aspiration that they're presenting on screen. So
yeah, no, and that's really cool. One other thing that I think is really like relevant with like talking about video is we run a lot of ads. Video ads just outperform almost all other content. So if you want to go do advertising, like investing in a video matters. Like I don't know how many numbers I actually want to share, but like almost always double as the results. Yeah. So if I have a good video opposed to just like some images or carousel or whatever, the video almost always outperforms the pictures or the written content or whatever the thing is. Video just outperforms, especially in demand gen. If you're talking about capturing leads on Google, maybe a headline's good enough, but really creating demand with video content is it's the pinnacle. It is what you want to be doing.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the benefits too of video is that, like, so often I do a video shoot with an organization, and I mean, how it always is, you capture like 3 hours of video footage, and then it gets whittled down to like 1 minute or 2 minutes kind of thing. Yeah. There's always so much that's left on the editing room floor. But I find too that like I shoot this video, and usually it's for a specific purpose, specific format. They want to run a 30-second ad, or they have a time slot at the theater for 1 minute or something like that. Yeah. But that experience of getting all that footage, there's a lot more that actually can be taken from that. And so I often tell people that like video, there's a lot of like mileage on a video in that, it can be long form, it can be short form, it can be for different platforms, like it can be for social media, it can be, its own kind of standalone video, it can be in physical spaces playing like a movie theater or a video billboard, those kind of things. And so
trade shows,
huge. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like video, there's a lot of opportunity with the video, where, so often I know more than anyone that there's a lot of footage that could be used, right? And so it's
the like, stuff you painfully tuck away in a folder.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I know I recently worked on a video for a school division, a recruitment video for a school division. Yeah. And we interviewed like 15 different staff from that school division, and great interviews. Like they all had their own unique perspective about why it was great working for the Lord Selkirk School Division. And then that got edited into like a 10-minute video. So it's a pretty long video, but with 15 people, that's like less than a minute for each one of them. And so now what this client we're doing is we're actually like taking all these individual people that we interviewed and kind of creating a story for each one of them, but then also having that like main story that kind of ties them all together. And so so there's definitely like a lot of opportunity, I think, with the video that if a company wants like a 2-minute who we are video, like there's probably a lot more that can come from that, actually, like reels or ads or Yeah, that kind of thing.
And you can get a limited scope. Like someone could come to you and say, I only want the 2-minute video. And you can do that. But probably if they come back to you and say, hey, I need another video. Well, you already have this backlog of all this content you've already shot, whether it's B-roll footage or like stuff in a different season that you want to film. I know like for construction guys, it's like, hey, I kind of want like it to look like it is outside. If it's spring, I want spring. If it's fall, I want fall. Right. So then you can have some content from different times and all that kind of stuff too. Like it stacks up. You're not stuck with just what I shot today. It's what I shot yesterday and the day before. And maybe we don't have to do another shoot. We take all the stuff from your last 6 shoots and we compile something together. Right.
And that's kind of a bit of the selling point of like the investment of video is that there's a lot of future opportunity with it. Like it's not just a static thing like a photo or a visual graphic. Like there's a lot that can come from it, right? So
the other thing with video content that I'm curious, like what your opinion is do you think long form or short form content is more valuable to a business? I know like they end up in different places. Like long form might be on your website or trade show, and short form is really like the reels and the YouTube shorts and all that kind of stuff. What do you find is the most like sought after and valued by businesses?
Yeah, I would say the great answer of it depends kind of because
sure, yeah.
I know you've talked about a bit about like that kind of sales journey and or that idea of kind of like different stages of engaging with customers, right? Yeah. And there's like a stage of what is it, affinity or like what's the first? It starts with an A.
The first stage is
attention? No.
Yes. Attention, so attention, and then it's interest, and then it moves to consideration, and then purchase.
Yeah, and so I think like in these kind of different stages where you're trying to engage with customers, it kind of depends where they are on that stage a little bit of, I think, the form of video or content that you're providing. So like short form video, is definitely the top thing right now of like there's so many opportunities with it for ads, for social media. I mean, I'm sure that the average person consumes like
a million
short form videos every day kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that there is definitely value in long form video if you can actually get somebody to watch it. And that's kind of the key and where there's a bit of the art of creating the video in that can you actually keep someone's attention for like 5 minutes, for 10 minutes kind of thing. Yeah. But kind of going back to that, like where they are on the customer journey, I think there's different things that you maybe want to present to the customer about your business, depending on where they are. And I found that like, when they're at that stage of like almost becoming a customer, then maybe it's just kind of that last, like just getting that message across of like, this is our product, this is our service, here's how you get it kind of thing. But I think earlier on in the journey, there's more of that opportunity to not necessarily do the hard sell of like, here's our product, take it or leave it kind of thing. Yeah. But more proving that maybe you're an expert in the industry or that you relate to them and their interests and that kind of thing. And so
showing capability that you've done this for someone similar to them.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and that's where I think a lot of long form content can be more valuable because the long form, like not a lot of people are necessarily going to want to watch a 5 or 10 minute video about your specific product and a walkthrough of your specific product, unless they're really at the end of that journey of like, we're deciding whether or not we're going to purchase this today. And so we're going to watch the whole walkthrough of their product. But I think earlier on, you have a lot bigger of an audience that might be interested in an education piece that's 10 minutes. And so I think a lot of like businesses and brands are maybe a little hesitant to do that because it feels a little bit like, that's not really our that's not really salesy. That's not really our brand. Yeah. We're just giving valuable content and then putting our logo at the end of it. Is that really worth it? But I think that in kind of a long term game, I think that there's a lot of value in doing that, in creating content kind of for that, really early customer that isn't really trying to do a hard sell, but it's just more as trying to establish you as someone who is knowledgeable, as someone who's entertaining or whatever it is. Yeah. And it kind of draws them into your ecosystem.
You can often move someone into consideration where maybe they just had interest before, but now they're considering you as because of some of this content where it's like, hey, we actually provided this value to this person.
Yeah.
I think another place longer form videos are helpful is at the end, closer to the end of a sales cycle, because someone might be really interested in your service, but they don't know all the bits and pieces. And so you can often create a video about one of your service, like especially in the service-based like industry, like where we are, you can create a longer form video and give people information about, hey, this is actually our process. This is how we approach things. This is how we operate. And then people can come back and say, oh, okay, I was here. I was like almost ready to buy. That was just enough. Let's go ahead. Let's take the next step. Right. So
yeah, it kind of bookends maybe the kind of the sales journey, the sales experience with long form content, in that there's actually opportunity for it at the very beginning. That's maybe more to just capture their interest and kind of establish yourself and your personality with that long form content. Yeah. And then kind of at the end when it's like they're invested enough that they're willing to watch a 10-minute video of you explaining what the next step is and what they're going to experience.
The boring video that 10 people watch.
Yeah. But those 10 people are customers, which are quite valuable, right? And so,
yeah.
So it's maybe that idea kind of, like of at the start, if you can get lots of people to watch a long form video, and you have to be intentional about that video being something that lots of people are going to be willing to watch, because it's not necessarily just about your specific product or service, but it's maybe some information that's valuable to them. Yeah. And then kind of at the end, that really low view video, but it's the low amount of views are really valuable views. Yeah.
Well, and I think this is something I follow Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you follow him at all, but he's a business guy in marketing, and he's written a couple of cool books, but he talks about this quite a bit. He's like, some businesses get all of their leads from Instagram and they have like 2,000 followers on Instagram. Yeah. It's the audience is really primed and they have a good audience. It's not a big deal that they don't have a huge audience, because their audience is primed. They know the person. They're really connected to real people.
Yeah, and there's kind of this, I don't know if you've like the term brand affinity, and this idea of kind of like, can you actually get people to genuinely like have affinity for your brand, whether they are inspired by or look up to kind of thing. And I think a lot of that is, again, it kind of goes back to that like personality. And depending on the industry, maybe the brand affinity comes from you being the most knowledgeable person that they can look to for resources, for information. Yeah. It could be entertainment, as in, it
could be funny.
It could be funny, and it like relates really well to that industry of like, oh, only fellow videographers would understand this entertainment, and it's a company that sells video equipment, right? And so it kind of establishes that like we're a part of this industry, we know you, like we're one of you kind of thing, and so therefore you can trust our products, because
you get those industry specific terms in there that people are like, nobody else knows what we're talking about. Yeah, exactly. But like it connects really well with that specific audience, which is exactly what you want with this type of content. I think the other one is storytelling too. Like entertainment can come in the form of storytelling. If your story is good enough, people will follow it.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw a really interesting ad 2 weeks ago, and it's an ad for like a delivery service. But the whole ad is this story. It's maybe 45 seconds. The story of this kid delivering like a thing. It's a package of some kind to his grandma or whatever. And it's like, we don't want to take away, at the end of the ad, it was like, we don't want to take away this delivery, but we'll take care of all the other ones. And it's like, oh, that's a really interesting thing where people are connecting a story into like, this is a cool thing. This is a cool story. We don't want to take away from that delivery, but we want to do all the other ones.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, there's a genuine, like a lot of those businesses that are maybe producing, like especially you see this around like Christmas time when, businesses, like larger businesses come out with their like Christmas ads, and usually they're just some sort of like really heartwarming story that doesn't necessarily like have that much to do with their brand, but then they kind of just like tie the bow on it at the end, and it's like brought to you by
Black Friday.
But, yeah, exactly. And I think that there's actually, larger businesses are doing that. And I think like smaller businesses can actually take a bit of a page from that book as well. Of, I heard someone explain something once before about like, if I was to give you a gift, and if that gift has wrapping paper with my face all over it, you're not going to necessarily like appreciate it as much as if it was just a gift that I gave you, and then I'm kind of in the back like, oh, I gave you that gift kind of thing. And I think there's an opportunity for brands to do that a little bit, where they actually give a genuine like gift of either entertainment or knowledge or heartfelt story or whatever to their viewers, their audience, and then just kind of being in the back being like, that was me, like I brought that to you kind of thing. And it gives you a little bit of an idea of like what my values are or what my expertise is or interests, that kind of thing. And so I think video has a bit of that opportunity to do that, especially long form video, right? Where you might not be able to do that in kind of a shorter video, but if you can create a long form video and then tie that back to your company, even if it's not like front and center, like our logo all over this thing and it's just our product kind of thing, but it's more a story, and then we're kind of the ones at the end that like that was brought to you by us. Can be valuable. So
brought to you by Solis Sphere.
Yeah, exactly.
I really appreciate that, because we talk about a lot of the time we talk about like adding value to people, and that's like one of the principles of Solis Spheres. We want to add value to all our customers and everyone who interacts with us. It's not always about having a customer. Sometimes it's just, hey, can we have a conversation? It's like, yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we can add some value to your business or your operations or whatever the thing is. And I think video allows you, in this case, we do the podcast, and we're trying to do that. We're trying to add value to people. And it is connected to Solis Sphere. Yeah. We give away the information, sell the implementation is the way we approach it, right? What would you recommend to a company? Hey, I want to start doing video content. What would be something you'd come in and say, this is going to add value to your business? Yeah,
I think especially for businesses that are maybe more like specialized in like a service or something like that, I think again, that educational piece is actually really valuable. Of if there's some sort of value that you can give to, and it's kind of exactly what you're doing at Solis Sphere, is if you can give information that kind of establishes you as an expert, as someone who's trusted, also as someone who's not, you often see those kind of YouTube ads or videos where, okay, we have the solution for whatever it is, weight loss or something like that, but then they never tell you, like the idea is kind of just to never actually tell you what the solution is. It just kind of keep you on the hook for that.
Click the link
and then once you get past these paywalls, then we'll tell you this idea that doesn't work. But to be able to actually like genuinely provide helpful education, information to people, I think that's kind of a great starting point. And so, that's something that can be done in a really polished way. It can be something that's even done just in a simple way of like setting up a camera and getting good audio and then giving explanation about certain topics that people might genuinely be interested in. And I think too, it also like there's opportunities for organic views, organic search for that. If I think it's the case that like YouTube is the second most used search engine behind Google.
Yeah, 40% of all searches happen on YouTube.
And so if a business is able to, and it's kind of the idea of like, you've probably talked about SEO on this podcast before, and that kind of SEO strategy of like, what are people actually looking to find out through their Google search, and can you get in front of them? I think the same thing can be true for video, where like, if there's, especially if you have like a visual product, or it's like showing how to do this with this product kind of thing. I think that's a good starting point, is really like providing kind of an educational piece for your potential customers that can get actually like organic view and interest versus just like a just an ad, even though ads are really valuable. And but if kind of just a starting point where you don't even really need to have much budget to produce a video, put it on YouTube. And
well, and something that I think is relevant is creating content and posting it organically. If you're consistent about it, you will get impressions. It is the reality of it. If you are not posting content, you're not going to get the impressions. So a new business coming up, it's like, I don't want to like put money behind it, or what, like I don't want to spend the time in just posting organic without paying for reach, without advertising. There's value there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get discouraged by like, especially because we're in a kind of age where like number of views and like kind of social media clout is the big thing. And so like, if you're not getting 1,000 views, if you're not getting 1 million views, then is it really worth it kind of thing? But, if you think of like the opportunity to, like if let's say only 100 people view your video, it's like that actually can be valuable too. Like you have, like imagine speaking to 100 people, in front of you, like that is fairly significant.
Yeah.
And so don't necessarily be discouraged by the low view count, because sometimes the low views can have high value.
And low views gives you an idea that they're real people too.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes, like especially for service-based industries, let's say you got 100 views, but like 2% of those people bought. What does two new jobs every video mean for your business?
Mm-hmm.
A ton.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so 100 views doesn't matter as long as they're engaged.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you get 10 views and one of those people is a customer, that's actually perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I recommend to people just start doing stuff.
Yeah.
If some people see it, that's usually what you're aiming at, is you want some people to see it.
Mm-hmm.
We've done some social media content for people over the years, and images get so and so far. There's almost like a limitation on how far an image can get.
Yeah.
Video, it can go as far as you want it to.
Yeah, totally. And the other advice too I'd probably give is that kind of getting over, and then, I can give this to myself too, because like kind of getting over the vulnerability of like appearing on video. Mm-hmm. I think that's often a bit of a hang up for a lot of, I've done like countless interviews with people on video.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, just like I can think of an example where I was doing a video. It's a testimonial video, and myself and the team that I was working with, we went for dinner with this customer beforehand, and he was really talkative, charismatic. He did a great job of explaining the value of the company that I was working for, and like, just it was like, okay, this is a great guy. But then we put the camera in front of him, and suddenly it was kind of like deer in the headlights, just kind of shut down type of thing. Yeah. Which I think there's a bit of that instinct. Well, it depends kind of on the personality of the people. Like, myself, I'm probably better behind the camera than I'm in front of the camera. I haven't done a lot of like in front of the camera kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, it depends, kind of on their personality. Like some people are way more willing and natural to be on camera, and some people are a lot less so. But I think kind of developing that willingness to be yourself on camera, because if you're a business and you're selling your services or you're selling your product, and people are genuinely connecting to you and are genuinely enjoy interacting with you, whether that's through the service that they're purchasing or the sale of the product that they're purchasing. Like if people are drawn to make purchases from you, like you're qualified to be on video. Like that personality that shines through in, person to person interactions, it can shine through in video as well. And you can reach that larger audience of, again, just remembering that it is people that are watching this. And so it's like,
people relate to people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the reality of it. I don't think I get hey, I want to be anonymous. I don't want to be like all over the internet and the face of the company and all that kind of. I totally get that. That was, I think, my perspective for a long time. We didn't do like a lot of video content, and and then eventually I was like, well, I sell people. Yeah. I want to be in front of as many people as possible in terms of like talking to people, adding value. Like this is my goal is to add as much value to people as possible. Oh, I can do that. I can actually just do that on a larger scale. Yeah. And putting my face in front of it, I don't think harms it. I think it helps it, because people will see me and they'll be like, oh, I saw the video, or whatever. You walk into meet someone at like a chamber or mixer or whatever the thing is, and I already kind of know who you are. Yeah. Like I get the gist. It's like, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, if you can have a sit down meeting with somebody in a conversation and explain your services or your product, like you can do that on video, even though it feels very different, but it's kind of the same, imagine that your camera is a potential customer that you're talking to, and kind of go from there. And so,
well, and one of the values of hiring someone like you is, if it feels disjointed or whatever, you could say, hey, let's go again. Let's do it again. And you do the magic behind the scenes of cropping it together, making it look good, sound beautiful.
Well, that's kind of that's something that I often have to remind people, because a lot of the videos that I do are, there are some that are like scripted where, maybe someone's reading from a teleprompter, but a lot of them I'm just interviewing specific people from their business, from their brand, whether it's customers, employees, the owner or the owners. And so often I have to remind people that like I'm gonna we're gonna sit here and talk on camera for like an hour, 30 minutes, and that's going to be whittled down to like a 45-second segment. And so if you're like worried about how you look, like my job is pretty much to take the like 2% of this video where you look the best, where you represent your business the best, where you seem the most authentic. And so if you're kind of worried about like how you appear on camera, like my job is to actually take the best part of this experience, this interview kind of thing,
and make it look good.
Yeah.
Maybe walk me through that. What's your process? So someone comes in and says, hey, I want to do some video content with you. What's step one for a customer coming in?
Yeah. So usually like it's kind of identifying a bit of like, what are the goals of this video? Where do you want it to play? What is the target audience for this video? And kind of understanding that. And I often do try to, like, I do often point people to this idea of kind of like, if you want to, a lot of people it's just kind of like, I just want to show my business off to the world, right?
Yeah.
Like I want a video that like, so I do a lot of like who we are kind of videos for businesses where it's like, we have a website, we have some photos on social media, but like, if we could just get a video that explains who we are to people. And so often that's kind of what people are asking for is some sort of video that just shows off their business, who they are, what they do, kind of thing. And so often my process is, okay, so we want to show who you are. Going back to that idea of like a brand is something that people say about you, not what you say to them.
Absolutely.
And usually people are saying things about you based on the people at your organization, because the people at your organization are the ones that they're relating to. Whether it's the salesperson that they interact with, whether it's the owner, whether it's the person performing the services, those are the people that people remember as the brand more so maybe than
the people you engage with.
The people you engage with.
You remember.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the impression that you get. So it's whether it's a negative or positive impression, hopefully it's positive because they're friendly, because they're professional, those kind of things. And so what I would do is usually, in this kind of use case, let's say it's like a who we are video, identifying like at your organization, think of the people at your organization that really represent who you are.
Right.
Whether it's the owner, whether it's like a customer, whether it's an employee, identify those people, and preferably ones that are comfortable on camera.
Yeah.
And so
Makes
then
a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And so then usually what I'll do is we'll identify those people who can really speak well to who the company is, and not necessarily that they're like the best like speakers,
sure,
but more that they have the personality that really matches the brand of, our organization is friendly. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're we're casual, that kind of thing. Okay, well, who's somebody at your organization that is like
like that?
Yeah, like Jane, she is casual and she is friendly and she doesn't take herself too seriously. That's a perfect person to kind of represent the brand.
Yeah.
Even if it is just like, maybe it is like somebody I don't want to say just an employee, but even if it is an employee that's not necessarily like a huge key stakeholder who has a lot of, responsibility at the business. If it's somebody who like really, really portrays the personality of the brand, let's find them. And then it's a matter of, doing an interview with them. So usually I sit them down, have like 2 cameras on them. And then I just start asking them questions. And there too, it's like the interview process is really important, and understanding to how, I often say to people at the start of the interview too, like the goal is to be as authentic as you can be. Like, if you have to, like, don't, like, the worst is usually when people really think like, okay, I get into their head about how they have to portray themselves.
I gotta sit perfect.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like,
and can I say that again? And like, I've kind of rehearsed my answers for these questions.
Yeah.
But if it can be like an authentic conversation where like their true personality shines through, because again, we've identified that their personality represents the brand really well.
Personality.
It's the right personality.
The personality you want.
So if that comes through organically, then that's perfect. And so usually it's like, finding people and then putting them on camera. And then usually like the process is doing interviews with people and then getting a lot of what's called B-roll, or that kind of that footage where that's where you're getting footage of inside the business, of the service that they're performing, of the product
The
itself.
actual deliverable.
The actual deliverable, exactly. And then kind of matching that, overlaying that with that interview of someone explaining the values of the company, the personality of the company, the services, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of often, the process, depending again on kind of what the video is. Like sometimes videos like the one that you and I worked on will be a bit more commercial, or they'll be a bit more like storyboarded and scripted, and a little more like planned and intentional, and a little less like, just organic, and see what kind of comes out the other end of the video process. So sometimes videos will be a little bit more, we'll have more of that like pre-production of, developing a script, developing a storyboard, getting people who are actually like actors, not just, employees or that kind of thing, but people who are more experienced or kind of trained to actually like portray, they are more photogenic, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's another part of, and there too, there can be a very powerful story and personality that can shine through there, but there's more pre-production that's required for that to.
Yeah. It's a different thing, right? It's a different thing than hey, talk about the business, explain the services, show the brand. Yeah. That's a different video than a commercial saying, hey, we really want to say very specifically this thing about the company or this product or this service, right? So I think it's a different thing. I had a question about when you do an interview of a customer, of like you're doing like a customer profile. Is that the same process where you're looking for someone that's similar to the brand, or are you looking for just like an ideal customer? What's your case there?
Yeah, I think I think they're kind of connected, those two things. Sure. Definitely, like it would be that ideal customer, and kind of talking about, like I talked about a bit earlier, like who is the customer that all the other customers can kind of aspire to be. Yes. Right. Like maybe they've accomplished something. Or, like some of the stories that I've told through these customer testimonials is a customer that kind of overcame a challenge, and they kind of tell that story on camera. And if it's something that other fellow customers can also identify with, of like, oh, I have that same challenge as well, and here's a story that's, interesting, emotional about how they overcame that challenge. And so I think it's kind of that, like when you're interviewing a customer for more of a testimonial, it's really important that you understand your customer base, your target audience, like what value are they looking for in your business, and how can you then tell that story? I recently did, again, like just finished up this larger project doing a recruitment video for a school division, and there, one of the values, I guess, that we identified kind of at the beginning of the pre-production of this video was that, the Lord Selkirk School Division really values people and really supports their teachers, and really like encourages growth and really stands behind teachers. And there's a lot more of this kind of community environment. And with this video, it wasn't scripted; it was just an interview. But there was a teacher or a principal that I spoke to where he told this story about how he got hired back in like the 90s or 80s, that kind of thing. Long time ago. And he was did his first couple months of teaching on a term, and he at the end of it was like, I'm not cut out to be a teacher. Like this was awful. Like I'm obviously terrible at this. Like I don't know what I'm doing. But then he tells a story about how his principal at the time, like his boss, ended up extending his term without actually telling him that he had done that. And so there's kind of just the story of like, it's kind of a funny story about how he thought that he was a terrible teacher and he was going to quit. But then his boss was like, no, I'm extending your term. And he didn't even tell him that. He just did it, and I guess told him later, kind of thing. But, and it's an interesting story, but I think that really speaks to that exact value of that, like we support our teachers, that we're not ready to let them go, or we're not ready to just like shut them down because they're learning, kind of thing. And that idea of kind of growth. And so like just that little story, like that little testimony that he gave.
He got invested in.
And it really speaks to the value that we were trying to get. And so I think that's true for customer testimonials too. Of, is there a story that can really speak to the value that we're trying to bring? Of someone felt better about themselves because they used our product. Somebody felt they have more confidence in business because they invested in our service or our business, kind of thing. And so really identifying with what it is that customers are looking for, and how can I tell that in a story, in video. whether it's with customers or staff, that kind of thing.
What's something that like you've been doing video for a while now? What's something that like you're growing in, or like a new skill that you're doing, or tell me a little bit about how you've grown in the last little bit.
Yeah. I think like one of the things that's changed a lot since again, my interest in video started when I was in high school, which was 10 years ago or 11 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And I remember, I have a specific memory of being in my high school library and looking up the latest camera and gear and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like in those 10 years, so much has happened in terms of companies, like equipment companies really shifting their focus, like cameras and stuff like that, to video. Yeah. And one of the things that it did is it really opened up the ability for like lots of people to do video, right? It's like there's a lot of local videographers now, like way more than there was 10 years ago. Yeah. Now the demand has also increased greatly since then. And so I think like for myself being a freelance videographer, you can look at that as like the accessibility to video has increased or has gotten so much wider. You can look at that as like a negative thing of like, are people going to really need my services if the latest iPhone can shoot great video kind of thing? But I think the way that I've looked at that is that's not a negative thing. I think that's actually a positive thing for me, is that video has become much more accessible because so much more people are doing it. So many more businesses are interested in it. Yeah. And so the way that I kind of want to position myself is being kind of that, like really focusing on quality, really focusing on like getting the best possible with video, in terms of like the visuals, in terms of the audio, and really like focusing on just the quality, because as video has expanded and there's so much more of it out there and there's so many more people doing it, I think the ability to recognize quality in video is also growing and getting bigger, because now it's like you have so many factors and variables.
Examples too, right? You have all these examples of someone doing a really good job or doing a really poor job, and like you can compare and contrast. Yeah. And you're doing that every time you watch a video. You're like, oh, what's the production value? You don't maybe consciously think about it, but you're like, oh, this is a little old or backwards or whatever. Yeah, and it's kind of like, and it's interesting too, like the amount that you can spend on video is so dramatic. Like a business, like you can, really, like a business can spend pretty much $0 on it by just getting one of their employees' iPhones out and then posting that on social media. There's not really a cost to that associated with that. But then there's businesses who are spending multi-millions of dollars on producing videos, producing commercials, that kind of thing. And so, often when I talk with a client, I kind of ask that question of like, well, what is your budget for this video? Yeah. Which I think a lot of clients are a little bit like hesitant to answer, to hear, because it's kind of like, well, if I tell you my budget, you're just going to use it all up, kind of thing. Like, get it for me as cheaply as you can. But the reason that I asked that question of, what's your budget here, isn't so that I can just use as much of the budget as I possibly can, but just so that I can get an understanding of how we can steer this video, whatever it is, whatever the content is. Because the truth is, like, I can make a video for a couple $100. I can make a video for a couple $1,000. Like, I can do both those things, but depending on what you're able to do, can open up the opportunity for longer video, for more video, for even the time that's spent finessing like the lighting of the video, the amount of time in editing, that kind of thing, with motion graphics. And so so I think that one of the big changes or focuses that I've over the years really had to kind of change is realizing that like just doing video is not by itself like a unique something that's going to make me stand out, right? Like that may have been the case like 15 years ago, where if a business wanted a video, well, there's three guys.
They had their shouldered whatever tape cameras or like DV cameras. That used to be the case, and then they had a price point of, well, to get all this equipment out there, to use the tape or to that kind of thing, it costs this much, and so that's the bar. Like if you want a video, that's just what you have to do. But now we're in this environment where like if a business wants a video, like they have to think of how much is this video worth to us, in terms of budget. And so
And I think customers should also think like, what are you using it for, right? A crazy example is like 2 video price points that are different is Kanye West did his Yeezy ad on his phone for the Super Bowl. Yeah. And then right after that was a $14 million production one for Popcorners, where they had like the actors from Breaking Bad in there and like the whole, like the compare and contrast is fascinating. But if you're actually going to spend $15 million on an ad placement, you probably want to spend $1 million on the ad to make sure it's right, to make sure it's perfect. If you're just going to be posting it on your website, maybe you don't need a huge budget. Maybe it's a $1,000 job. Hey, if you're going to put $10,000 of advertising behind it, maybe you want to spend a little bit more, right? So deciding what your budget is isn't just deciding like, oh, how cheap can I get this? But you also want to like mitigate some risk. Hey, if we're going to put $60,000 behind this ad, well, then you might actually want to spend some money because you want to get a good result out of that advertising, right? So it's not just about, oh, I want the cheapest video. It's about what result do you want from it as well?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where I see like the value that I'm able to bring is that it is like, yes, I'm not the only one that can do video. Like most businesses' employees can do video. Yeah. But what kind of level of quality do you want? And what does that kind of say about your brand? And again, like you said, depending on the placement, like, there's a lot of value in even just social media content that's, like intentionally very organic or raw or, casual and not that well polished and produced kind of thing. Yeah. But then there's also value in more polished stuff that gives that impression of this is quality, this is professional, this is legitimate, right? And so that's a bit where, investing more in a video can be valuable there. And so, but yeah, it's kind of that like there's, like I said, you can spend a couple $100s on a video, you can spend thousands, millions of dollars on a video, and that's part of I think my job that I'm having to learn. Not that I'm an expert at, but learn more of just how to position a business somewhere on that scale of like, if you can put a few dollars behind it, like, there definitely can be a difference that you'll see in the end product compared to what you can do for really cheap or free or that kind of thing. So
yeah, I think that's really great. We do some of the similar stuff where, hey, what can you spend on a website? It's not always about like, I want to spend as little as possible. It's like, what do you want the experience to be? Yeah. Or what do you want to spend on an advertising campaign? Well, what do you want? Like, how far do you want it to go, and all that kind of stuff.
And it's also like that. I think a big thing, and the same thing with like websites, web design, even logo creation, especially is a great example of this. Is that it's not necessarily like with video, the tools. Like there's I have lots of video equipment that I've accumulated over the years, and professional quality video equipment, but that's not necessarily even like what you're investing in is just like the high quality equipment, because again, a lot of that, the barrier for that is actually going down a bit because you can not spend that much and get pretty good quality equipment. But a lot of it is the time and the expertise. And so especially like when you think of a website, for example, like building a website really it's about the time that they're able to spend, or your time essentially that they're able to spend of, like, do you want to do some research beforehand to like really make this website as intentional as it can be, as like, curated
targeted for keywords.
Targeted, exactly.
Do you want like landing pages that are going to be for specific ads, or like there is a question of like how much do you want this to fit your need? Yeah. And what is your need? Yeah. Like that matters a lot.
And it's like some businesses are happy to just like, like in also working on websites, like some businesses are just like, I just pretty much want a brochure or a business card online where it's like, it has my name, a picture of me, my phone number, my like email. That's all I want, kind of thing. But then you have some businesses where it's like, no, we want to be really intentional about our online hub. And so we want you to like do a lot of research and planning for this. And the same thing kind of applies to video as well, where, it can be like just get on site with the camera, capture as much as you can, and then edit it into, as best as you can, kind of thing. Or there's that opportunity to really take more time in kind of the pre-production, the planning, and even the timing of setup too, where like, these kind of interviews too, like I think it's kind of a something that like every videographer wants is more time on site to like figure out the lighting, that kind of thing, because like time is just so valuable and it can make the difference of the quality in a lot of ways. And so it really is a lot about spending money for time. I think with video, with really anything,
and
like,
experience, because maybe your time is more valuable because you've done this 100 times. Because actually I know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the light there. I don't need to try different things. Because you have that experience, right? So it's time plus experience.
For sure. And you think of too, like, I mentioned, like, especially with like logo design, where like you see some logos that like really big businesses come out with, and they maybe spent millions of dollars on this logo. And you look at it in like the actual time of, like, I could probably recreate this logo in Illustrator and it would take me an hour. Like, but they obviously didn't spend that $1 million for a new logo on that 1 hour of the actual like drawing of the vector shape. They spent the $1 million on the expertise, on the time, on the research, on the planning, like all these pieces that you don't necessarily see, just on the surface, but when you kind of understand the value of this to an organization, it makes more sense of why they're spending so much money on it.
Absolutely.
Because it's so valuable to them. Like, it's worth $1 million to them, or that kind of thing.
Whatever it is, Well, this is great. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
And stay tuned for more.
Sounds good.